Hey everyone, Dan here. We're about an hour after market close on Tuesday, July 27th. Today we're going to take a look at Tesla. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not intended to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, come to your own conclusions, and make your own decisions based on that information. All right, so Tesla has been the talk of the town lately. If we flip over here, we'll see on swaggy stocks, Tesla is still occupying the top spot on Wall Street bets, a little over 14% of the comment volume, 162 comments with positive sentiment versus 68 turning negative. And this coming off, obviously, the great record quarter. Tesla blows past estimates, post-record quarter. That said, there's also been some slightly bearish, I guess you could call them, stories come out talking about, where is it here on Ortex, the production issues that Tesla has or could have based on shortages and all the challenges with what it takes to productize a vehicle, but also an electric vehicle that's dependent on batteries and all of the rare earth minerals and such that go into securing and creating batteries. So sort of a mixed bag here, and we see that reflected in the last few days. We see this choppy action here as we were running up and then very quickly pulled back and then tried another impulsive move up and pulled back again today. So a bit to unpack here on the chart. Obviously, today we dropped about 2% with pretty high volume, to be honest, jumping up about 7 million over the average from the last 3 months. So to me, that says there are a lot of sellers in the market at the moment, or at least today, with Tesla. And for whatever reason, they decided it was a good opportunity to cash in, and they've done so. So we do see this slightly declining lower highs here recently, kind of looking like it's about to converge with a bunch of these higher lows, sort of forming a flagging out pattern. And so we take these, go from here, and we scoop these up more or less in this frame here, and then we do the same to the downside. This is much steeper. We could smooth it out a little bit by going from here, and this would put us just in the next few days. This would put us flagging out. If we stay within this general vicinity, this would set us up to flag out by about August 6th, August 9th, somewhere in there. So it would give us a few trading days still in this formation if it's willing to stay relatively flat. Now, like I said, a lot of that, in my opinion, is going to depend on the volume and the sentiment here, obviously, coming in from retail. You see all of these spikes with the green, with the red volume staying relatively low. So even on red days, the volume wasn't peaking out so much where the buy volume was, the green volume on nice green days. But today we saw a bit of a reversal on that, where the sell volume came in quite significantly strong, certainly not as crazy as back here, but we have seen that peaking out previously, and it has caused some brief periods of downturn. Now, we'll of course temper that by saying if we pull back and take like the 1 year view, this is, has been the crazy run up that we have seen. And if we go in and we take, obviously these zones were from previous charting that I had done. We had charted purple in my charts always as a potential bounce zone. Obviously we saw it come down and it bounced right off of those zones twice actually, and is now in this relatively upward formation since that double bounce in that purple zone. At that point, the red was my stop loss, which obviously we did not hit. But if I go ahead and look for an extension here, so if we think of this pullback into the purple as a swing low, albeit a double swing low, but if we take our impulsive move up and then we say our swing low was here, then we would look for extension levels up this way. And right now we're consolidating around that 23.6 extension level. So we could have some play here on the extensions if it continues to respect these levels. That's always the question, is what's the veracity of the extension levels based on this price action. Now, I don't love that it retraced back down here. So to me, that is not the best sign of strength. That said, if it can sustain itself right around where it is at the moment, this retracement that we see would essentially line up about there. This would have pulled us back into this blue zone right to about the 50% line, which to me, I honestly, I typically ignore the 50%. It just kind of comes in. But now we see it consolidating around this 38.2. So potentially we have the ability to run up there and respect some of those zones. And if it does, I would be looking for that retracement in the coming weeks and months to actually run us up to the 100% level, which I can't even get on this chart, but looks like it punches us up over 1,000. There's probably a smoother way to do this that I should try to figure out, but I don't know, besides zooming out this way. All right, well, I'm still not getting it. But anyway, this would punch us up over 1,000, it looks like, because I'm still not seeing the 100% extension zone when I zoom out that bar. And if that can play out, that would be excellent. Obviously, it's going to need to bounce quite strongly off of this 23.6 extension zone to get things going, but it is doing a nice job holding these higher lows, but I do have some questions about what's coming in with some of these lower highs. So that would be the thing that would be giving me pause. Now, from the daily perspective, let's take a look at the indicators and see if they're pointing us in any direction or another. So obviously coming off some bullish momentum there, we saw the big gap up. That gap has now been filled to the extent to which that was going to drag the price down. That should be sufficient at the moment. Now the MACD coming down, hovering a bit over the baseline, nothing too heavily extended, but certainly not at the baseline. And this bearish momentum is not really doing anything. It's not really building, it's not really dying down, it's kind of hanging out, looks as though it's wanting to choose a direction. Now, if this bearish momentum doesn't really kind of evolve beyond where it is at the moment, meaning this doesn't come down and get much, much deeper, I think that that's where the potential for the solid upswing with a true extension, like we talked about, this pushing toward that $1,000 mark, sort of starts to take on some possibility, because you see back here when we had this pretty significant sell-off from 900 down to 539 there, the bearish momentum got down obviously very, very deep, and then we had a slight recovery, and now we've had a second sell-off that retraced basically all the way back down, right? That's that double bottoming into that purple bounce zone. But that bearish momentum was not as much momentum as the previous bearish area. And now if this can continue to further die down, this would just essentially tell me that the bears are really, really, from a longer point of view, from an extended perspective of the daily chart, bears are in general starting to lose a grip on Tesla since its sell-off after it was punched just over 900. That said, we would need the bullish momentum to pick up quite a bit, and the MACD right now is sitting over the baseline, so that doesn't make it impossible by any stretch of the imagination for it to start to secure some very hefty bullish momentum. But it does put it in the sort of broader context of it doesn't have as much run room as it would have if it were down here. So that's why I'm wondering if there is going to be a further pullback and maybe even triple test that 558-ish level, or maybe come down and stop shy of it, maybe around 570 or so, and then bounce from there. I don't know, but I would be keeping an eye on this at the moment to see where this bearish momentum is going. Is it truly going to flatten and die off, or is it going to come back and pull this MACD line below the baseline, which I think would be fine. It would obviously flag us out to the downside, but I do think that there's still strong potential here for a bounce coming. I don't think that we've seen the bounce that we're going to have, even though it stretched up here into the high 700s back in April. Now, on the RSI side of things, it's sitting about midline, and so this is always the big testing point. It's just below the midline, but it's sort of trying to hold on. That said, the RSI is losing steam, so it is dying down here a bit, and this could give it, or I guess could just relinquish the midline to the downside if we see this continuing to kind of die down, because I think it's unlikely that it'll move relatively sideways like we saw here. I think it's looking to pick a direction at the moment, and obviously if it can't hold and it keeps making these lower highs, then it's just going to push itself into oversold. So we'll see what happens on that side of things. Now if we zoom in and take just the 5-day view to sort of see what some of these trend lines and indications read per a shorter trading time frame, so if you're doing daily or short-term swing trades, that sort of thing, this could be more useful from that perspective. Everything just sort of pinning itself to this 656 zone, and I know we're below that at the moment, and I just said we might have some selling pressure coming in, so that would then of course unpin it. But we did see today, over the course of the last trading week or so, we're certainly making lower lows than we have seen in the last trading week, and that to me could obviously signify that we're developing a bit of a downtrend line here, even though we had this sort of anomalous upward push here based on some good news and some revived interest from the retail side of things. So here on the MACD we see the bearish momentum starting to pick up again, and that'll be the question. That bullish momentum couldn't really hold very long today at all, even though it was a pretty solid jump up, relatively speaking. This is the only area in which that would be rivaled over the last couple of days. But to me, this is still also just kind of trying to pick a direction and is kind of relatively range bound at the moment, kind of trading within these two frames. And there's definitely the potential. Can I pull out just a little bit more here? We'll go to the month. Yeah, you see here, you can even see it a little bit better. If we say that we're sort of range bound in this area, there lies the strong possibility that because the price activity has been just stuck in this area from about 630, say, to about 690, that there's a bunch of limit buys and limit sells above and below. And if that's the case, then if we see some relatively significant movement out of this, then that could give us an indication that some of those are going to get triggered and that direction is going to continue quite strongly. Now it's sitting toward the bottom of this range at the moment, so take that for what you will. If it wants to continue to be range bound, then it could continue to pull back up just to stay within range. But the other thing that I would potentially note within this range is we see there was mostly for the first half of this box, it was spending most of the range to the upper side. I guess we could even pull this back here, right? And then, so it had been spending most of its time in this upper bound of the range, and now it's sort of sequestered itself down toward this lower bound of the range. And so whether that means it's about to pop itself out to the downside and hit some sells and sell off a bit there or not is the question. But this range that it's in right now will be interesting to see how that plays out in the coming days. But that's what I'm going to be watching closely on the tighter in time frame. Again, on the macro charts, I'm looking more still toward these bounce zones if it comes back down. But we get into a situation where the demand for the stock at that price is only going to be there so many times. So the more times the stock goes to the well to try to get some water from there, the more likely that it's going to dry up eventually. To me, the most bullish thing on the chart at the moment is the MACD, which could be quite telling. So we'll see. Now, a quick look at some of the data. I know we popped over here briefly, but we do have sort of this production question hanging around. The analyst to me could do some driving on this. Tip Ranks has a slightly different take on this. They have the last 3 months with a consensus price target 746, which gives almost 16% of upside, 10 buy ratings, 6 holds, and 4 sells. So this isn't to say that I think the analysts are right. It's to say that to the extent to which retail in bulk and or institutions want to follow the general direction of the analyst rankings as a consensus, then this could cause some folks to come in, cause some institutions to come in based on that alone, especially if it continues range bound and they think, okay, it's kind of settling into a pattern here, but it generally has more upside potential than downside potential, and so this could be a good area to scoop it in, as it seems to be trading relatively sideways at the moment. The highest price target there you see is coming in at 1200, which makes my potential for an extension that would bring us up over 1000 not that crazy. That said, it really needs to start moving in that extension direction if it's going to happen. Alright, well that'll do it for this one. I appreciate you watching or sharing, and of course liking and subscribing go a long way. And thanks for your time. I just realized I already said thanks for watching. So I hope your trading week is off to a good start, and whether you're trading Tesla or whatever else you're trading, I hope that it is a good one ahead. Alright, I will see you in the next video.